Good morning, everybody. It's good to see the team is back here
Good
for
morning.
another exciting edition of
Ed. Everyone should say one
jumping
part
in.
of it.
We love when you say it.
We should all take one part.
Chosen,
Ed.
what's it? We're changing our
Cation.
name to the what?
No, we're not changing our name.
Oh,
We have
okay.
a great name.
We have a great name. Okay, just
In fact, my friend, I'm not going to say, well, I could say it. My friend Shannon says that the favorite part of her episode is when you say education.
education.
She loves when you say it.
That is
Education.
that is
As
that
a
is
matter of fact, I'm
not
going to say it 100 times.
that is
Education.
not high praise for the show. If that is her favorite part is when your dad says the name. That is that's damning.
Listen, the only praise we need is that people listen to the whole episode. That says everything. Even if you hate it and you're cursing us out, if you listen,
It's the best.
you're our friend.
It's great if people curse us out.
Yeah.
At least they're engaged.
Exactly.
The worst thing about people is apathy versus
Well, I mean,
versus hatred.
actually, from a listener standpoint, the optimal solution is just play it and don't listen. 'Cause
Right.
Then nobody complains about anything, but we get the listen.
We get the
so,
listen.
Right.
You know, it's
Right.
that's like the
That's so
optimal
true.
solution there.
That is true. So, how's everyone doing before we get
Everyone's
into
doing
our
good.
discussion? We're
I
good.
just want to say, you know what? In the secular world, they have this idea. Books have been written about it, about the selfish gene that everybody has. Every human being has a selfish gene, which basically means that like everything really it revolves around you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other scientific meanings to the selfish gene,
Right.
but really much what it means is that everything really revolves around you. That no matter what happens in the world, it always boils down to how does it affect me.
Yeah.
I always give the example here in California, which doesn't rain very often, but every once in a while it rains. So the first thing that you're thinking about is how does it impact you on the freeway? I'm
Right.
going to be late to work. I would take a different route. My car is the windshield. Whatever it's going to be is always about you. What about the tens of thousands of people that are on the freeway also suffering the way you're suffering? The firemen who are going to have to be out there in the cold and rain. What about the workers have to be out there in the rain? Nah, forget those people. That doesn't mean anything. It's your inconvenience. And it was retold to me today because my children, we have a son, a brother that lives in Israel that's coming to visit next week. We're always worried about, flare-ups in the Middle East, and they start canceling flights, and they close the airport. So for weeks we've been praying that everything should go well. Today they made an announcement, the American government with whoever else announced it, not Israel, but everybody
Right.
else announced that there happens to be this peace treaty implementation.
Yeah.
I want to know how far this is in Gaza,
Right.
which is great news. I mean, it's great news. It means that, there won't be any more hostilities and all of that stuff. My only thought was, great, because now they're not closing the airport on Monday. That's all that mattered to me. I don't care about anything else. The only thing that matters to me is a Ben Gurion airport needs to stay open on Monday, and El Al, I think he's flying El Al, has to fly on Monday. Forget about anything else. It doesn't matter
That's true.
that this is going to have an impact on tens of thousands of reserve
Millions.
soldiers
Right.
that are going to go home. Their children will be able to see their fathers. Wives will be reunited with their husbands. Businesses will open up. Things are going to happen. People are going to be rebuilding. People are going to be doing.
Yeah.
Who cares about that? No, who cares about that? No. The only thing that matters really in this world is one thing: Ben Gurion Airport must stay open on Monday, and flight Moishi's on must depart Ben Gurion Airport. That's the only thing that
It's
matters
true.
in this whole negotiation.
It's true.
And
I called Whitcoff and I said, please do me a
Whitcoff
favor.
knows, and I gave him ready
Just
the
Monday.
I gave him the flight number, and I gave him exactly all the things, and that's all. That's
This is the best part about the whole story is that you, my father,
yeah.
is so excited about Maishi coming. You would think he has one child. How do I know? Everything we've said in the last 2 weeks that needs to happen in the next month, because Maishi's going to be here for several weeks, my father says, but Maishi's going to be here. But Maishi's going to be here. We can't do anything. So I'm just curious, are you like following him around every second that he's visiting? Are you attaching yourself
He's
with
actually
your limb?
he's actually sleeping in our bedroom. Moshe's going to come into our bedroom. His family, his wife and children, he could sleep whatever, but Moshe's going to come. No, I mean, because he's the furthest away.
I know,
We haven't
I
seen
know.
him in a long time.
I know.
the kids have gone
Thank
through
God.
a tremendous amount in the past couple of years
Yeah.
with school on, school off, school on, school off. You know, the sirens and going into the
A
shelter
lot of trauma.
and all.
It's
There's a
true.
lot of trauma, and we don't get to see them. Everybody else we've seen. I mean, we've seen Yankee, we've seen Label.
Yeah.
They've come around, and then the three that live here. Okay, fine.
You can't
You
get
know,
rid of
okay,
it.
That's great. That is what it is. You know, like okay, all right. But Moshe lives in Israel, and we haven't seen them in a while, and the
Yeah.
kids are older, and the kids are growing.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have them visit.
Yes,
It
thank God.
is funny because I was thinking about. So I just recently, you probably know, Rabbi. I just booked a trip to Israel for next year.
No.
Oh yeah.
When?
Yeah, next May I'm going.
We're going with Jay. And we could open up to our listeners.
Yeah.
We could
Yes.
open up to our
Oh, you
listeners.
just had that idea at a meeting this week that you shut me down in a half a second.
You don't want to go with our listeners. I'm telling you, you don't want to go with the
So
listeners.
so the point of my story is I have I travel on Delta. I have a ton of Delta points, and the flight options on Delta were good, but in the back of my mind I kept thinking they keep canceling their flights. Every sneeze they cancel their flights.
Right.
So they have,
right.
they have a code share with El Al, so I booked El Al. The flight options were awful.
I know.
Awful. So, but I said, you know what? I've traveled all over the world for work. I've never had to consider, is a flight going to actually happen and
Right.
book my flight on an airline based on if the flight is actually going to happen. But I ended up booking El Al just because I knew there would be a better
Yeah.
chance that it would actually
You'll have a good
happen.
experience in El Al.
Oh
You'll
yeah,
have a very
yeah,
good
I'm
experience
sure.
because it's
I just
not
have
a regular airline. It's like
No, I
more
know.
like it's more like getting together for a family Thanksgiving meal.
It's true.
Just think about a Jewish family on Thanksgiving, and then then you won't be disappointed in El Al.
Yeah.
Like like just be prepared that when they start serving the meals and the stewardess comes down or whatever they call themselves today, flight attendant, schmight
Yeah.
attendant, and you don't know the word.
Flight
Was it
attendant.
Flight attendant
Yeah.
comes down and asks you, "Sir, are you ready for dinner?" And you'll look up at her and you're going to innocently say, "What are my choices?" And she will say, "Yes or no." Those are your choices, sir. So just be prepared for,
God.
being part of the Israeli experience so that you won't be surprised when you get to Israel
It
and the
starts-
first guy you meet is your Sheirut driver, where you're going to take a Sheirut, let's say, to Tel Aviv or to Jerusalem, and it's going to say no smoking in the van, but he's going to have 2 cigarettes, one in each hand, and the window's going to be closed.
No, and he's
gonna-
going to tell you he has to stop in Ranana to drop something off at his sister's house.
Exactly.
on his way.
And he's talking on the telephone while he's driving with one hand and a cigarette and the car. And you can ask if the police sir, do you mind turning on the air conditioner because it's May and
Say,
it's a
"No,
little
it's
warm
not
in the
hot."
car? No, it's not hot. Why is it hot? You're hot. Americans are always hot. It's not hot. It's not
Oh
hot.
my
You
God,
don't need
it's
air
so true.
conditioning. So you just
I remember clearly. This is in like 1996, probably.
No,
One of the times I went to Israel in the 90s, I flew TWA. I flew Tower Air and TWA. Those were the airlines that flew. And I went to the bathroom in the middle of the flight, and there was a flight attendant crying in the hallway. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "This is the worst flight we get. It's a punishment to get Tel Aviv, New York. I hate this flight." And because there were so many kids, it was so loud. Everyone was screaming. People were still smoking in the back. I still remember just utter chaos. And this lady was crying. She said, "The only flight that's worse is Rome, but Tel Aviv is a punishment. I got punished." I was like, "Oh,
wow.
I'm sorry."
No, I'm not. As I'm thinking it back, I wasn't so much exaggerating about. I remember the first time we flew in after many, many years. We hadn't been to Mean Mommy. The first time we went there, I think it was like 1997 or something like that, and that's been after 30 years of not being there. Maybe a little less, and it's snowing in Jerusalem.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
there's a storm. It's like January. We're about 5 families. We don't know each other. We're in this Sheirut going
a
to
taxi.
Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a like
Communal
a communal
taxi.
taxi.
Yeah.
Okay, literally the guy is smoking. His window's open. It's in the middle of a snowstorm. His windshield wipers are barely working. So he's like trying to maneuver it with his hand. Okay. He's
my
talking on
God.
the telephone. We're like sitting there petrified. We're not even. We're afraid to say a word. Who knows? But this was. It's changed. It's changed in the past
Yeah,
25
they're more
years.
professional
They're
now.
more professional. And the services are better. But it's still Israel, for all of its sophistication, and we think about the IDF as being very technologically advanced and a powerful army, it's still a shtetl.
Yeah.
It's still,
It is,
bottom
it
line
is.
it's still a shtetl where you're going to go in
Okay,
Israel.
Last story, and then we'll
Then we have to
finish.
go.
But when we took the kids right after October 7th, like 2 months after, we went to Israel for Hanukkah. So we got into the Shevat outside the airport, and you wait there because the guy's trying to find more people so he can make more money. So there were maybe like 5 other people in the Shevat and us. And a guy, an ultra-Orthodox guy, comes into the van, and he's collecting money for his daughter's wedding. So he's asking everyone for cash, like charity, right? And this woman who was sitting in the front starts shrieking at him. I don't care about your daughter's wedding. 1,200 people were just killed, and there's a war, and you're coming here. And they're screaming. He's not ashamed. He's screaming back at her. She's screaming. My 4 boys were just with their jaws on the floor. I mean, they were so uncomfortable.
You mean this doesn't happen every day in America?
No, he felt fully entitled to be asking us. He starts so he goes to Baruch in Yiddish. He starts talking to him in Yiddish. So Baruch pulls out some money and gives it to him. The lady then turns on Baruch, starts screaming at him. Why are you supporting these losers? Oh my God! My kids were like, "Can we go in a different taxi? Can we take the bus?" They were so uncomfortable. I'm like, "Good, you're 2 minutes in. This is what we're experiencing."
God.
It's great.
No
There's
place,
nothing like
no
it.
place like home.
Exactly.
Oh,
Okay.
God.
So for today's topic, we are in the summer months, and it's the time of year where we read through the book of Deuteronomy, the book of Devarim. Every week in Shul, we read a parsha, and so this week we're reading, I think, Akev, and which would have been my bar mitzvah parsha if I was a boy, but because I'm a girl, it didn't matter. So
What do you mean it didn't matter?
I'm saying like
It's still
I
a
didn't.
Parsha's Akev.
No, I'm saying I
I
would
mean,
have known.
I don't know what you meant. It
Remember,
didn't
Rabbi,
matter.
you started off the episode talking about the selfish gene. Remember that discussion?
Oh my God.
Yes,
it's so
I get it. I thought we stopped that discussion. I thought we went into
I
talking
was
about
just
Moses
trying
and Devarim.
You
I
never
mean, it doesn't-
you never
it
stopped that
doesn't-
discussion.
It doesn't matter. Okay, fine. It didn't matter. Okay.
So I
And
thought
I'm just trying to understand what she meant by that. It didn't matter.
I meant if I would have been a boy, I would have learned the whole parsha. I would have
okay.
chanted it in Shul, but I didn't. So
Okay.
till today, I've refused to learn Parshas Akev. I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
So anyway, we're going to talk about the whole book of Deuteronomy instead of going through parsha by parsha, because there are a lot of themes that are kind of different than the other 4 books, and that just kind of flow through the whole book of it's the 5th book of the Torah, and the themes that flow through it I think are very relevant and interesting. And when you look at it from a bird's eye perspective, you get a lot of nuance about the whole book of Devarim. So that's where I wanted to start. Do you want to give like a brief overview of the whole book, and then we can go back and sort of dive into more, different elements of it?
Sure. So Devarim, and a traditional name for it is Mishneh Torah. It's the repetition of the Torah, a repeat of the Torah. Many commentators say that the book of Deuteronomy, Moses spoke on his own behalf. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's not divine. It doesn't mean that it's not part of the Torah, but it's different than the first 4 books, which God kind of dictated to Moshe Rabbeinu and told him what to write and gave him the mitzvahs during the first 4 books. Here, it's Moshe's, recount of what happened until now and his prediction for the future, and a tremendous exhortation to the Jewish people for when they go into the land of Israel, what they should expect and how he expects them to act when they get into the land of Israel. So it takes place 5 weeks before he passes away. Moshe is going to pass away on the 7th day of Adar, and this takes place the beginning of the book on the first day of the month of Shevat. On the 11th month, the first day, Moses begins to reiterate, retell the story of the Jewish people, and that's kind of the overview, of the book. So it's a long soliloquy, and Moses' last will and testament and last chance to charge the Jewish people with what he wants to tell them, that what they should expect coming into the land of Israel.
So a lot of the repeating is stuff that we have in previous books, like from Exodus and from Numbers. There are discrepancies. I mean, let's start with that, right? Like there are certain things that are slightly different then like he repeats things that maybe are slightly different from before. Can you comment on that? Because I know that's a question people often ask.
When you say there's discrepancies, are you talking about discrepancies in the narrative, or are you talking about discrepancies in the mitzvahs? Because, for example, I'll give you one example.
Yeah.
One of the examples that is he's retelling the story of the sending of the spies.
Right.
Now, in the book of Numbers, we have the story where God approaches him and says, "Shlach lecha," you send spies on your behalf. Meaning that really God is saying to him that I don't need them to validate this. I know what I can do. I know I can win the war in Canaan. But if in order for you to be certain and to go in with confidence, if you feel that you need this, go ahead and do this. So it would seem that the inspiration for sending the spies came sort of from God, but it had Moses' flavor added to it. When he retells the story, he tells, you approached me. He's talking to the Jewish people, and you approached me, and you said, hey, you know what? We need to send spies, and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there you see a bit of a discrepancy between Numbers and Deuteronomy. Most probably what happened is Moses is giving you the backstory, meaning Moses didn't need a spy. I needed the spies. Right. What did I need the spies for? I know God's power. I've seen God's power. I mean, he took down Egypt. He split the Red Sea. He fought against Amalek. He fought against Sichon, Og. We've won wars with him on our side. I don't need. But since you came to me and said, look, ain't something you can't rely on a miracle. Keep going. Who knows, what's going to happen, especially since you're not going to be around anymore. We may need some, we need some confirmation that we are able to do this. Okay, all right. I wasn't very happy, and God wasn't very happy with this because it kind of tests us, in our strength. But then it goes back. Then we go back to the book of Numbers where God is saying to him, okay, you know what? Shlach lecha. If you think it's a good idea, do it. Now, what was Moses's? Why did Moses do it? Why did Moses not say to them right away? One second. Hold on. You know what? What do you need the spies for? I mean, we know we can do it. So Moses was testing them, and said, okay, you know what? I'm going to pick 12 men, and I'm going to quote unquote send them, but I'm not really going to send them. I want you at some point to jump in and say, no, Moses. You know what? We don't really need them. We trust you. We trust God. We don't need it. I was waiting, and you didn't. Right. Okay. So this is what happened. This was the end result. So there's already a little bit of discrepancy between the story of Shalach and the story, this. Okay. So
that makes
those because Moses is retelling us things that that we were not privy to in the first number of books, and Moses is more elaborating on the story. There's also differences. Like, for example, we read last week the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
There are minor differences in the Ten Commandments, between words as Shomer and Zachar, remember the Sabbath and keep the Sabbath. Okay, this the commentaries have said because there's really two aspects of Sabbath.
Right.
So the first time God said it in both ways, and Moses then used the word, the other word in the second time of when he reiterates the thing. So it's no contradiction. It's not that God he's abrogating the first concept of Shabbos.
Right.
It's just that there's little nuances to the tenth commandment versus coveting versus jealousy and coveting and desiring. So little differences here and there. But then you have to understand that the first one was written is said by God at Mount Sinai. The second one is Moses, reiterating to the Jewish people. Right. He's talking out to a whole new clan.
I was gonna get to that. Yeah.
That this is a whole new clan, even though. But go ahead. I mean, that's
that's one of the questions I was going to ask, is because the people who experienced the Exodus from Egypt, who came into the desert, who experienced all the miracles and all of the sort of, the giving of the Torah at Sinai and all the different things that Moses, led them through. Most of those people were dead at this point,
all
if
dead.
not all of them.
Except for two. It says
except for two
people. Kalev and Yeshua.
So his retelling was really to a new generation of people who didn't experience it themselves. Exactly. So this is like the first kind of Pesach or something,
Almost.
Yeah.
Because anyone that was 20 years old at the time of the spies passed away. Meaning that all of the kids were there.
Okay.
I mean, so the kids did experience, so if you were born, let's say, leaving Egypt, and you were like 1 month old.
Okay.
Let's just say. So now you're 40.
Right.
You know, if you were 19, you're 40 and 19, 69.
Right.
59. Sorry, you're 59. Right. So you have those. You have that element. The 40-year-olds and the 50-year-olds. Those 2 decades
They were
experienced
still
it.
alive.
Now,
Okay.
if you were a month old and you came to the Red Sea, obviously you didn't,
Yeah, you don't
you didn't
know.
remember it.
Right.
You don't remember the giving of the Torah. But if you were, let's say, 5
Right.
and you experienced it, so those 15 years, let's say, from 5 to 20,
Mm-hmm.
though those 15 years, that element of the generations did experience
Yeah.
it. They saw it.
Yeah.
And Moses keeps over and over and over. One of the themes is that you saw it, you've experienced
Right.
it, you went through it, you know, so you know that God is reliable, and you know, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
Right.
he's talking really to 2 different sets of people. The under 40 crowd is a brand new crowd. I mean, they
Right.
were born in the desert, although they've experienced miracles themselves in the
Right,
desert,
right.
because you know they
The
only ate the man,
Yeah.
and they had fresh drinking water, and they had the clouds of glory over them, and their clothes, you know, miraculously, you know, changed with them. It grew with them. So they themselves lived a miraculous life. But the events in Egypt, they didn't experience.
Right.
They did not experience. So here's Moses talking to a new generation which doesn't have the hangover of this slave mentality.
Right.
I mean, even the kids too. I mean, to be honest, I mean, even the children that were in Egypt, they weren't really the ones that
Right.
suffered. I mean, it was the parents and grandparents, you know, and great grandparents that went through the suffering of it. So they also were not burdened by this slave mentality, you know, just waking up every morning and all you did was, you know, build Pharaoh's storage house,
Right,
buildings, you know. So this is who Moses is speaking to. So again, what he's trying to do here in this book is to inject into them the sense that, you know what, remember one thing, and remember one thing only. You are going into a foreign culture right now. You have not been challenged like this here, except in little bits and spurts, and you know, little bits when they encountered various nations along the way. But in all reality, they were a separate people, you know, wandering in the desert, and they were protected by the cloud of glory. They were protected by Moses. They were protected, you know, by the man. But now it's all going to change to you. Right now you're going in, and there's no more man, and there's no more, you know, well, and there's no more clouds of glory, and none of that is. But you have to still remember, even while you're in that kind of a milieu, and you're going to be involved in another culture, there's people living there. There's indigenous people living in the land of Canaan, and they don't have our values. They don't worship like us. They're not faithful like us. You have to remember that your source of blessing and of strength is always going to be your reliance on the Almighty and on His Word. Over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. He goes over it and over it and over it and over it because he knows how difficult it's going to be and what a challenge it's going to be to come in as a foreign people into a foreign land and to still keep your unique culture.
Values, yeah.
I mean, we don't have to go far and look at the American Jewry here
that's what I was
in America.
thinking. Yeah.
I mean, you come over here. Many people came from the Städtlichen, you know, in Europe, who were religious people, whose grandfathers had beards, whose mothers covered their hair, who, you know, kept Shabbos. Not all. I mean, there were many secular Jews in Europe. We're not sugarcoating it, but many were that came to America. And you come to America, it was so easy to assimilate and to say to yourself, you know, why be so different? Why stick out like a sore thumb? And so
that's kind of how I hear. I don't know, Jay, I'm sorry I'm cutting you off, but I kind of hear Moses talking in that way, like saying to a generation, you know, after the wars that they're going to fight, they're going to settle into, you know, a comfortable life, and life is going to be easier than traveling, and they're not slaves, they have freedom. And I hear Moses kind of warning them that it's when you're comfortable and when things are easy that you're going to forget Hashem, or you're going to forget the Torah, and you can't. Like, those are the times that you have to work extra hard to remember who we are, what our values are. And I think that's so relevant today. I mean, that's exactly what we're experiencing right now.
no one rejects the Almighty unless you're successful.
Yeah.
If you're not successful, you're pious
Right.
because you're always hoping that he'll remember you.
Right.
But once you hit the success lane, and then you don't need God anymore.
Right.
I mean, and he says it in this week's parsha. We're talking about parsha Zakev. He says you got to be careful, because when you will be successful, and God willing, you'll be successful in the land of Israel, you're going to say to yourself, my strength and my power made me this wealth. I did it.
Right.
And we go back to the beginning of the podcast when we talk about the selfish gene.
Yeah.
There it comes into play, where you forget about that it's God's blessing, and you forget about that it's it was your humility, and you're willing to to be subservient to the Almighty and to follow His ways, because Judaism is not going to be an easy religion to establish. I mean, it's going to have a lot of do's and don'ts, and Moses goes over those do's and don'ts, in it. You got to treat people fairly. You got to let the land lay fallow. A lot of the rules that we are going to experience in the book of Deuteronomy are directly connected to the land, to the land of Israel.
Right.
I mean, so when you go in there, this is what you're going to have to do, and it's not going to be easy, and it's sometimes it's going to be challenging to you. Let the land lay fallow every 7 years. I mean, just think about that for a second. That's a very, very, very difficult challenge to you. I mean, everybody else is doing business, and you have to let your business. You can't harvest. You can't plow. You can't do anything. It's a hard one. It's a hard one to follow. And you're giving away tithing. There's a lot of different gifts that you have to give to the Kohen. There's a lot of gifts that you have to give to the poor people. God expected you. It was a capitalistic society where you could make as much money as you wanted. There were no restrictions, but you had to be honest in business, and you couldn't surcharge. You couldn't rip people off. You had to be very vigilant. A word was a word. And in business, that's not so easy to do, even if it's among your own tribes. How much more so when you're having to deal with a foreign culture that is also living in your milieu, and they're also successful, and they don't have all of these restrictions, to them. And then you look around to your neighbor and you say, "Wait 1 second, look at this guy. He's successful, but Shabbos he can party. I got to go to shul." Or, he doesn't have to wear tzitzis in the summer, and I got to wear an undershirt and tzitzis and a shirt and a black jacket, and then Shabbos a coat and a black hat, and all of that stuff. And this guy walks around in, shorts and flip-flops. And he's also successful, and he's going to the beach in Tel Aviv, and I got to sit in a non-air-conditioned shul in Yerushalayim, someplace next to people that haven't showered on Friday. So come on, where's the equity over here? And Moses understood this very clearly. He was not naive, Moses. He understood this is going to be a tremendous challenge, and he kept saying, "You got to remember that our blessings are connected to it. That there's no bifurcation between the Torah and your success. If you're going to think to yourself, and you know what, I'll give the tithing, but I'm not going to be so careful in the kosher laws. But I'm still doing the tithing. I'm still being a good person." Make no mistake about it that our destiny is completely connected to the Torah and to our observance of the Torah.
Right.
I mean, the fact that, but usually it worked the other way. People were much more careful with eating and less careful with what they were doing with their money. Right. I mean, which is a harder challenge, than any. So Moses is over and over and over again telling the people, remember this, remember this, remember this. And he goes into a long part is about the historical times when Jews, were confrontational, towards God, and didn't listen to God and didn't follow His ways. And he says, "You saw what happened.
Right.
You saw the devastation, that we experienced. We came in the first few sentences of the book. He's already telling them all of the places that there was machlokes, that there was different, there was fighting and division, and then there was worse than division. There was turning against God and questioning God's existence. We came out of Egypt, and it was for the first few days. We came to the Red Sea, and people were screaming at him, why did you take us out of Egypt to bury us in the desert? Why did you take us out of Egypt to let us starve in the desert, to take us out of Egypt so we have no water in the desert? All the time you kept challenging God and challenging God and challenging God. And what did God do? Every time he came through. Every time we needed water, he came through with water. We needed food, he came through with food. You wanted beef, he came through with beef. Every time, God came through. And yet you still weren't satisfied.
Yeah.
You still weren't satisfied. You still, even at the end, you kept coming. Korah kept coming, challenging God. Then the Baal Pa'ir, we came to the place of Shittim, and then you started to worship, and then you joined up with the Midianite women to worship the Baal, and one after the other, and after the other, and he's telling them this. Look what happens. Look what happens. I mean, we have the old expression: those that don't listen to history are destined to repeat it, right? If you don't remember history, you're destined to repeat it. That's what he's saying to them. He said this long ago, before any professor at a university said this.
Yeah.
I mean, Moses kept telling them, look at your history. Just look at what your parents did, what your grandparents did, and what some of you participated in, and see what the end result was. When you were loyal to God, look at us. We fought wars against the Amalekites, we defeated them. We fought great wars against two powerful kings, we defeated them. Everything is good when you're loyal. But if you're disloyal,
one thing about, I think it's so interesting about the structure of the book is that all of this comes after Moses goes to God and essentially begs him to let him enter the land.
Correct.
And so I'll ask you a question about that. I'll make my point, but I have a question about that also. And then basically, God says, go up this hill, look around, you'll never enter, and don't ask me again.
Right.
And it's almost like the way I kind of read Deuteronomy this time is almost like a warning of, you have your history, but look what happened to me. I have been the most faithful of all of God's servants. And even my misstep, it's almost the worst curse that anybody had, because all he wanted to do was be able to finish the journey with these people he had led through the desert for 40 years. And he's not allowed to complete it because of, the striking the rock. Mm-hmm. And so I almost kind of read it as sort of him bearing his soul to the Israelites, saying, look what happened to me. You need to be careful about these things when you enter the land, because I won't be there for you. And his most faithful servant, me, isn't allowed because of my indiscretions.
No, that's true.
And so the question I wanted to ask you about a specific thing is that God is like pretty brutal to Moses when that happens. I mean, he's, Moses is essentially begging him to enter, and God basically, I mean, the way it kind of reads is he's tormenting him. He brings him up to this hill, says, look around, you'll never be able to enter, and do not ask me again.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what's the read on that? What's your read on that, and what do like the sages say about that?
You could take it from a number of different perspectives. Number one is God understood that, we're going into a different milieu. It's a different world out there. We need new leadership. Moshe Rabbeinu, there's no one like him. No one is going to be like him. I don't say it. God says this. God testifies about him, that there was no one like him, and no one will be like him. That was as close to God as Moses was, that had this kind of a relationship, that had this kind of communication. Even other great prophets, no matter who they're going to be, are not going to be even close Maimonides writes about him that he was the head of the prophets, will always be the top prophet, and nobody will ever come close to Moses' experience. But like everything else, Moses is still a human being, and Moses had his experiences, and his experiences were the people in the desert. This was his community. He went through the difficulties of Egypt in a smaller way than his brother Aaron did. Now, he came late to the game, but still, nonetheless, he experienced what the Jews experienced there for a short while during slavery, took him out into the desert. So God understood that, we need a new leader. Joshua is a different kind of thinker. Joshua has a different kind of, different kind of energy. He's younger. He's not tormented by the past. He can go in there and he'll do a great job. He's proved himself to be loyal. He's proved himself to be courageous. So, he's going to be there. So I understand that from that point of view. I get it. You want to go Kabbalistically, Moses had this tremendous spiritual energy. Israel has this tremendous spiritual energy. So the two shall never meet. I mean, because, you just can't have that kind of, nitroglycerin together without it blowing up, like, an atomic bomb, something like that. So Kabbalistically, that's kind of the reason. But I take it more from a humanistic point of view, where Moses, wanted to go in, but he didn't want to go in because he wanted falafel on Dizengoff Street. That's not what he. Let me experience that, please. I need to have a falafel from,
Right.
from Shea Benny's or whatever it is over there. Like on, for 7 shekel. Moses went in there because he understood that the mitzvahs, the commandments that God gave, they produce some kind of energy, and he wanted to be able to experience that. I mean, he talked about, like going in there and letting the land lay fallow. What would that even mean, physically, going in there and all the mitzvahs that had to do with the land? What does that mean? Because Moses, of anybody, understood the tremendous impact that mitzvahs have, and that's what he wanted to experience. Because he felt like that's what he's lacking. Everything else, he put on tefillin, he put on tzitzis, he kept Shabbos, he kept kosher, all fine and good, and he appreciated that. But there were certain mitzvahs that only were applicable in the land of Israel that he was not going to be able to perform. And that's what he wanted. And God said to him, listen, I know you want that, but listen, what I'm going to do is come up and look at the land. You'll appreciate this. It's a portrait. And you'll love it. You'll see, you're not going to be in there, but your children are going to be in there, and your grandchildren and your relatives are going to be in there, and look at the land. And he showed him, the Medrash says, he showed him the entire history of the land. That was what was going to happen. The good times, the bad times, and the history of the Jewish people. And God said to him, listen, this is all going to be based on you, my man. All of this is going to be based on you. Every time we have a question, we always go back because this is what God said to Moses. Why do we do it? Because this is what God said to Moses. Maimonides writes clearly that we do not circumcise ourselves because God commanded Abraham. No, we circumcise ourselves because Moses gave us a mitzvah after Mount Sinai. That's why we go through Bris Milah, because it's a mitzvah in Moses' Torah. That's why we do it. We don't refrain from eating the sciatica nerve because Jacob had a wrestling match with some mysterious guy, and he gave him a Charlie horse, and that's why we're not having filet mignon at your favorite restaurant in Yerushalayim or Haifa. Okay, the reason why we don't eat it is because it was given to Moses at Sinai. That's why we Jews adhere to the Torah, and God was saying to him that everything is going to be based on you, Moshe Rabbeinu. You're not lacking anything. You have fulfilled your destiny here on earth. You have done it. Look over there. Enjoy the moment, knowing that your kids and grandkids, and all the generations that are going to come afterwards is going to be because what you did here in the desert for 40 years in dragging these people, and no one's going to take away anything from you. Yeah. So he's kind of appeasing him. I mean, I also look at it like, just sad. Yeah. And Moses at the end of since we're going through the whole Deuteronomy, Moses at the end of the day is going to die alone. No fanfare, no big funeral, nothing like that. They will mourn him, and they will sit, for 30 days they are going to, they eulogize him. Yes, of course, and they talk about him. But the funeral itself, I mean, think about it. He's going to walk up that mountain, and he's just going to go into that cave, unbeknownst to anybody where that is. And the greatest of greats, Moses, will pass away there, knowing full well that he has fulfilled, this is my destiny. I fulfilled my destiny. So, in one sense, yes, I feel for him. And I think, God was very harsh on him. But when it comes to great people and great sages and, people in positions of leadership, God is going to be extra careful on how he judges them. They're not the same guy on the street. Because you think about, what did Moses do? He spoke to the rock didn't give water. He spoke to it. It didn't give water. So if you don't give water when I'm speaking to you, you got to pay attention. So what did my teachers do when we didn't pay attention? They hit us with a stick over the head. So that's what Moses did. Like my teachers used to say, you're like the rock that Moses hit. Okay, fine. Maybe something will come out of you if I give you 20 whacks, on the head. Okay? So this is what Moses innocently. I mean, it wasn't, he didn't say, hey, hey, Aaron, watch this. You know what? God told me to speak to the rock. I'm going to really pull a fast one on him. I'm going to hit the rock. Okay, just to show him, what, then I don't care what you say about speaking to the rock. Okay? He believe me, he wasn't rebelling against God's word. But because he is Moses, and God wanted to send a message to the people by speaking, and Moses didn't get it. He didn't get it. And that's another reason why Moses didn't go into the land. He didn't grasp that. I mean, even as brilliant as he was and how smart he was, for whatever reason, he didn't understand it. Plus, we also have to understand that he also had one other temperamental issue with him, that he got angry. Moses was a man that didn't suffer fools lightly. I mean, he was tremendously exacting. I mean, he wanted you to be the best that you could possibly be, no excuses. And if things didn't go right, immediately he was angry. And we see through the books that what happens when he gets angry and he forgets things and all of that. But this is nothing to disparage Moses. God forbid.
No.
I mean, who am I? I don't know. We don't even come to his, Akev is the piata. In Yiddish, it's called the heel. Akev, like the name of the portion is the heel. We're not even at Moses' heel, when it comes to spirituality and understanding and relationship, with the Almighty. But I'm just reading from the book that this is what God, intended, to happen. And even if Moses had not hit the rock, let's say that episode never happened, I'm not even sure that he would have gone in anyways.
Right.
Because there is a time. There's a time for everybody, and there's a time to move on. David moved on. Solomon moved on. Abraham moved on. Elijah moved on. It's just that's the way it is in the world. So we had the greatest of Baal Shem Tov, who was maybe
the Rebbe.
Yeah, but the Rebbe is a little different because
I'm saying the Rebbe also passed away.
Yeah, he passed away. But I was going the Baal Shem Tov was a great leader, the greatest of the greats, founded the Hasidic movement, revolutionized Judaism. I mean, it had its connection spiritually with the world. We know stories about him where his soul ascended to heaven, and came a time when it said, what, Baal Shem Tov's method of doing things ceases. Now it's the Maggid, who was very, very different than the Baal Shem Tov, completely different than the Baal Shem Tov. So that's a lesson in leadership.
So one of the themes of running through the book of Deuteronomy is about not forgetting. I mean, over and over again, Moshe is saying to the Jewish people, don't forget, don't forget. And then we have probably the most famous line, at least for Jews. I don't know if this is the most famous line for non-Jews, but the most holy prayer that we say, which is the Shema, comes from this book. And it's a very direct command to the Jewish people to listen, to hear, to integrate the words that he's saying. And one of the incredible pieces, I think, of Jewish peoplehood is the paragraph of Shema, because you tell us to teach it to our children, right? And that you have to, and it should be with you all of the time, everywhere where you go, everything you do. Can you talk a little bit about Shema and why that really became how would you explain the mantra? Is it the mantra of the Jewish people?
No question. The quintessential statement in the Torah is the Shema. We say it in the morning, we say it in the afternoon, we say it in the evening, we say it when we're young, we say it when we're old, we say it on our deathbed, we say it when we go to martyrdom. we say Shema because this incorporates everything and encapsulates everything that we believe in the theological world about God. Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, and again, the hearing is not just listening, but it's an integrating into your hearts and engraving it onto your hearts. Hashem Elokeinu, God our God. God is one. Now, the one is interesting why he uses the word one and not God is alone or God is anything. God is one. He's the only one. God is not a composited. God is not made up of different parts. God is the only true existence. And it's explained over and over and over again in Jewish philosophy, in Hasidic philosophy, in Kabbalah, that the Almighty is the only one worthy of worship because he's the only one that's powerful in the world. Not only is he the only one that's powerful, he's the only true existence in this world. All of us are dependent upon air, dependent upon food, dependent upon water. We're fragile and we're limited. The only true existence that doesn't need anything else for its existence, doesn't depend on anything, is God.
Right.
Hashem Echad. So we really maybe even be like we don't even exist. In his eyes. We don't exist. So that is the statement of statements, that God is the ultimate in worship, God is the ultimate in existence, and there's nothing else but him. Nothing. And nothing. I mean, we don't believe that there's other powers in the world, that the sun is not powerful on its own, the moon is not powerful on its own, nature is not a distinct power on its own. Everything
Satan
is guided by the Almighty. Every single aspect of the universe, every blade of grass, every rotation of the sun, everything is directed by the Almighty and his will. And if for a moment he decides not to, and his will ceases, we go back to being nothing. And I'm not talking about nothing when, you burn a piece of paper and there's nothing left. I'm talking about nothing before the creation of the world, which was truly nothing. So that's what Shema really means. I mean, that God is everything and that we are completely dependent upon him for our existence. And therefore, what it means is that we need to adhere to the words, we need to listen to his words, we need to follow his instructions and comply with his commandments. That's the first sentence. Then, of course, the next sentence is v'yahavta. Hafta Shem Elokecha, you shall love God, your God, with all of your heart. The two bases. Why is there two bases in Levavcha? Even though the singular term for heart is leiv, with one. Why two bases? Because there's two inclinations: the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, the good inclination, the good soul, the animalistic soul. You have to love God with everything, every fiber of your existence. Even the soul that is trying to lead you off the good path, even that soul needs to love God. You need to love God with all of your inclinations and all of your money and all of your might. And even if God put you in a position where you have to renounce your life, for the unity of God and commit martyrdom, yes, I'm expecting you to be able to do that. And unfortunately, we've seen it happen more than once, in Jewish history. Now, question is like this. Many great sages have asked this question. How can God command us to love him?
Right.
Because love is an emotion. You could command people to put on tefillin, and I can force you to put on tefillin. I could put a gun to your head, and I'll say, I'm going to pull the trigger unless you put tefillin on, and most probably you'll put tefillin on. I'll put a gun to your head, and I'll say, put the tzitzis on, and most probably you'll put the tzitzis on. I could command you, and I could force you to do certain actions. One thing I can't force you to do is emotions. I can't put a gun to your head and say, I'm going to force you to love me. No, that doesn't work. Emotions come from within inside of you. You have to have that feeling. Now, fear, love, all of those things come from midas, from emotions. So the question was asked, how can God command someone to love him? You can't command, I'm commanding you to love me. Yeah. The answer is that what it means is that you have to do everything in your power to come to love God. That's what it means. You have to do everything in your power. You have to study, you have to meditate, you have to learn, you have to listen, you have to ask questions. You need to go and find a teacher that will explain to you why I need to love God, what is the purpose of loving God, what it means to love God. All of these things are preparatory. All of the preparations for loving God falls into that mitzvah of the Yahavta. Now, how do we do that? Through, Hasidic philosophy loves meditations. His baininus means. So you think about, a king, in how a king is, like is giving sustenance to his people and loves his people and cares about each individual citizen, in his kingdom, and only wants good for the people in his kingdom. And how do the people react to the king? They love him, they adore him, they revere him. They'll follow any law that he will give them. They will follow. Why? Because they love him. Now, why do they love him? Because he's a good guy. Because he helps them and he nurtures them and he sustains them. Now, Melech Malchi Hamlachim, God is the king of all kings. A king can give you life. The king could give you food. The king could support you with water. The king could support you with a job, housing. But he can't give you life. Here God is giving you the essence of who you are. God is giving you life. So all these meditations leads us to the idea of loving God. Mm-hmm. But the love itself comes after this. I mean, it just
you have to put effort in.
It's the same as in human relationships. I mean, you want to love somebody, you're going to have to what we call fall in love, right? You fall in love, meaning that we're not talking about infatuation. Infatuation is a Disney made up word, anyways. What does infatuation mean? Yeah, it's a rom-com. A guy walking down the street, he sees a beautiful woman across the street, and for the next 2.5 hours, they go through some shenanigans of where he crashes his car, falls out a window, and he brings flowers, the chocolates are wilted, and they're melted, and then at the end of the day, she realizes that he's not the schmo that he was made out to be, but really he's a great guy, and
he's actually a billionaire.
And his father owns half of Rhode Island, and and she falls in love with him. I mean, but he's infatuated with her. He knows this is the one. He met her at the airport, and he's like the TSA guy. The loser, the TSA guy, and the supermodel comes by. This is my bashert. No. Your bashert is the woman behind her. Okay?
Oh my God.
Okay, the woman behind her is your bashert. Okay, let's be honest.
Okay, let's not get detailed.
Let's not go there. Okay, but I'm just talking about the guy. I'm not. So I don't even know where I was going with this, but so love. It truly is a long-term process of where with imagination and contemplation and all of these deep thoughts, you come to love God. And that's what it means. Via hafta. It means all of that stuff. Then it then talks about, hey, the importance of this is don't keep it for yourself.
Yeah.
If you want this to be an everlasting endeavor that's going to last generation and generation and generation, the next most important thing is chinuch, is education, which became so vitally important to Jews that they have to educate their children. The children need to learn how to read. The children need to learn how to write. The children need how to think for themselves and stories and learn and study and argue and doing all of these things. And this should be your constant companion. Now we understand that you're going to have to go to work as well. You have to make a living. Okay. The question is going to be, where is your emphasis? Where is your emphasis? Is your emphasis on the 8 hours that you spend in the office from 9 to 5? Or is your emphasis from when you get home at 5 to 10 and early in the morning for breakfast? If that, on the weekends, if that is your emphasis, that your family and your children and your relationship with the Almighty and your relationship to Judaism and caring about it, then your children will know that this is something serious in your life.
Right.
And the 8 hours that you go to work is something that you're forced to do. But if the 8 hours of your life then became your focus, and your job becomes your focus, and your hobbies become your focus, and all of the things that are outside of your family become your focus, then your children see that it's not really you care that much about it. It's just that you're following along with the community standards. And that's what the Shema is telling you, that you need to have these words in your mouth. Study them, go over them, so that when someone asks you a question, you're not stammering, you know how to answer, what it means to be a Jew, the history of Judaism, and those things you need to reiterate to your children, not at the age of 15. Oh, he's a teenager, I think I'll start teaching him. No, at the age of 1 month, that when that baby first comes into that crib, at that crib every night you sing the Shema to them. You tell them that the 12 special verses that the Rebbe enjoined us to say to teach our children, and all of these things. That's what God wants you to do, and then you'll know that you've done something. Limaratim, that you've taught your children, speak about it, read about it, show them that you care about it. And then at the end of it, it's put on tefillin and put the mezuzahs on, because those are the signposts that you are subservient. those are the signposts that you know that when you put on tefillin and when you have a mezuzah, means that you are definitely dedicating your life and you're giving yourself over. You're subservient to the Almighty, both with your wisdom, both with your emotions, with everything that you have, your will, your pleasure, your home. Everything is dedicated to the service of the Almighty. And that's something that's reiterated over and over and over in Judaism. And that's what the Shema is, kind of.
Kind of.
There's much more to it.
That was an interesting qualifier.
That was just like,
I know,
there's
that's
so
like
many
I
so
know.
many commentators. I mean,
know.
there's books and books and books, about the Shema. I mean, the great Rav Unterman was a chief rabbi, in Israel, writes, about when you talk about Shema, he says, I'm putting these words on your heart, Aleph, on your heart, Aleph Avecha, on your heart. He says, what do you mean on your heart? He said, I'm putting these words in your heart. What do you mean on your heart? So he says, no. That's not God's business. God gives you the opportunity. He takes the words and places it on your heart. You have to open up your heart. To let those words in, that's your job. I can do mine. Mine is presenting opportunities. Here you are. Here's what I've prepared for you. You have to be the one to take the next step. And if you're not willing to take the next step and allowing those words to really permeate and integrate into your very, very essence of your soul, then who's to blame? So then what do you want from me? You claim to me I'm not good to you. But I've given you opportunity and you haven't shown me any love.
Yeah.
You haven't shown me any reverence. You haven't shown me any awe. So what do you want me to do more for you?
Right.
I thought that was a brilliant.
It is.
Brilliant
I've probably said Shema thousands of times, if not more, hundreds of thousands of times in my life, probably. And I just told Jay a story yesterday about how during the Northridge earthquake, I don't know if you remember this, but I was like a young teenager, and it was at 4:00 in the morning. And I remember Goldie and I we shared a room. We started right as soon as the earthquake started. We got out of bed and ran to the kitchen, and we were under the table and we were saying Shema over and over and over again. And I still remember that was like the thing that I instinctively knew to do, was just to like hold on to the table and just say Shema for however long it was going to last. And I just will never forget that.
That's reminded me of the story of the previous Rebbe when he was in Europe. Before he came to the United States in 1940.
It's because me and the previous Rebbe are very similar. So.
Yes, of course.
Yes,
You're a student of the Frierdiker Rebbe.
Yes.
So he was in Warsaw during the first bombings at the beginning of the war. And one of the nights they were in a shelter, and the bombs were coming in very close. And he says he remembers once that there was a bomb, and you just heard it like literally next door.
Yeah.
And the room was full of Jews, all different types of Jews. Hasidic Jews, non-Hasidic Jews, religious Jews, non-religious Jews. The room was just full of all different types of Jews, and he was sitting there, and he remembers that when the bomb fell, together, the entire collective of the room, everyone, from the great Rebbe to the most secular Jew, screamed out Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, because that just said that everybody at the end of the day, there's no one else to rely on but the Almighty.
Yeah.
And that's like what you said. It's instinctive. It's
instinctive.
It's in. But unfortunately, again, like many things here in the United States of America, it's you ask a kid Shema, and they look at you like what, who, what, when, where, how.
It is sad. After the Holocaust, there are stories about rabbis would go to orphanages, and they would call out Shema Yisrael, and that kids would answer. They would say the rest of the sentence, and then they would know that those were Jewish kids.
Correct.
And they would take them from. That's a very famous thing that happened after the Holocaust. So, anyway, Jay, you have one more question, or should we end it on this high note of?
I think that was a good note to end it on.
I mean, we could go on and on about this.
There's a lot in here. There's a lot in here. Unfortunately, many people don't appreciate, what's in the book, and don't appreciate the message of the book. But regardless of whether people do appreciate it and don't appreciate it, there's so much depth to it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go through parsha by parsha, verse by verse, word by word. There's so much wisdom here.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it says it in last week's portion, for this is your wisdom and your understanding to the eyes of the nations of the world. They will see in the Torah how great it is and how special it is, how important it is, how wise it is. Yeah, and they're going to want it. And guess what? it turned out
It's
to be
not.
exactly like it was predicted, that God had predicted this in the desert so many years ago. And half the world, literally half the world, adheres to the Torah.
Yeah.
You know, in one way or another. I'm not saying
Right,
they're
right.
Jewish, but one way or another, the Torah is the basis for all Western religions,
Yeah.
and is the
One
wisdom. You know,
one thing I will say is I'm consistently amazed at how central free will is to
Yeah.
the Torah and to Judaism.
well,
Choose
and
life,
that
choose life over and over.
in all of the details of how things are phrased, like I just thought of this because the rabbi was saying how it's about putting the message on your heart. You have to put it in your heart,
Yeah.
correct.
right? And just thinking back a few weeks ago, we talked about the parsha when Moses names Joshua his successor, and he says, and God tells him, tell it in front of the Israelites so they will hear, not so that they'll obey, but so that they'll hear. And they have the choice whether to follow Joshua or not, but make sure they hear it so that you're giving them that choice of free will. And it is amazing how consistent that message is in the book, that you have choices. You can make good choices, you can make bad choices, but at the end of the day, the choices are yours.
Right.
It's one of the essential parts of the 13 principles of faith that we do have free choice, and you would think to yourself, it's so common sense, because you think about it. If you go in there into your kitchen, oh, there is that chocolate bar. Should I not? And your experience is telling you that there's a choice to be made. You're standing there, you're the person, and either you're going to choose to eat the chocolate bar or not choose to eat the chocolate bar. So it would make many sense, but scientists reject this outright. I mean, and they say you're fooling yourself. There's no free choice. You've already, before even you've said in your mind that I want the chocolate bar, you've already began to move towards the chocolate bar. I mean, you don't perceive it because it happens so rapidly and so quickly, but it's determined whether you're going to eat the chocolate bar or not. Even before you get into this whole debate, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I, you've already made the decision that you're going to. I mean, and then the rest is all fluffery and
Okay,
convincing
Sam
yourself.
Harris.
But what?
Okay, Sam
Right,
Harris.
but I'm saying, and I think to myself, how do you do that? I mean, because I just read again. I'm reading another book, and the guy is not. He believes in free choice, but he's
Right.
explaining what determinism is. Is that even before that split second before you've already made the decision, it's been decided for you. You are going to go for it, or you're not going to go for it. But and this whole debate in your head is like. But to me, it's so simple that there is free choice. I mean, and like Jay said, God over and over and over repeats it. I'm presenting this to you. I'm giving this to Ray. See that I'm presenting the good, the bad, the life, and the death. And I want you to go out there and choose life. Choose life. Choose living.
Right.
But, we take the easy way out.
I mean, I think people get wrapped around the axle too, because I mean, look, not everything is free choice, right? I mean, we have
for sure.
genetics. You're born into a family.
Sure.
You're
Yeah.
born into a time period, and so you're working with some constraints, obviously.
Sure.
But that's not. But I think people take it too far when they say you have no free choice.
Wait.
For sure.
I need to tell you something based on that. I was going through a box that my mother gave me for my 40th birthday, which was 6 years ago, but I haven't really gone through it. And it's a bunch of stuff from when I was a kid. And in it is my 6th grade yearbook. So it's 1992, and it's our 6th grade class. And one of the pages says, "Where will you be in 2010?" Okay, because this is in
Okay, all right,
1992.
Can we guess?
So-
Can we guess?
So I have it in front of me.
It's
Chayaleh. What do you think
gonna
it
be
says?
all right. I think it's gonna be married to Brad Pitt.
Chayaleh is going to be a famous basketball player on the Bulls playing with Michael Jordan.
Oh,
No, you didn't write that.
I swear.
That's
That's what my friend. We all wrote it about.
They
Okay.
wrote about you.
This is
Why
That
you
is
say-
amazing.
You're such a big fan. I know you were a fan. You're such
half
a big
the references in the yearbook is to the Bulls. Everyone has like a last will and testament. Everyone leaves me 90210 and the Bulls. That's what I get. Jason Priestley and the Bulls. Michael Jordan. But
funny.
there's no free will here. I could never have played on the Chicago Bulls.
Yes,
Oh,
you could have.
I think
Jordan.
If
if
they
you
would have
had
stretched you out and
Wait, one other funny thing from it, and then we'll really end. I found, and this is relevant to this podcast, my first interview by Chaya Leah Perlmutter. It's from 2nd grade. I interview a girl, and I write in it. I'm interviewing this. Her name was Kayla. She has a brother. She likes this. She likes that.
Kayla Kletzkin?
Her grandparents were in the Nazi war. That's how I end it.
Her grandparents.
Her grandparents were in the Nazi war.
war.
Of course, I mentioned the Nazis, even in my first interview.
Well, it took us an hour and 4 minutes to finally bring in the Holocaust.
It's pretty good. I mean,
We held
so
ourselves back.
in other words, you have no free choice about talking about the Holocaust.
That's what it is. At the end of the day, it's going to come out one way or another.
Anyway, okay.
Okay.
Thank you guys. See you
My
next
pleasure.
week.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.